Hello and welcome to Finder's Library, your channel for flesh and blood content. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I've mostly been doing lore videos on Flesh and Blood, but I've been playing the game competitively now for a couple of months, and I wanted to go through my Ira build that I've been playing in the Blitz format. I've had quite a lot of success with it. I've won a couple tournaments, armory tournaments, and I also won the first UK skirmish with an Ira build. So I thought it would be useful for anyone that is looking into picking up Ira, or anyone who is coming up against it a lot in competitive play, to just have a look at some of the cards that you can put in the deck. I'm definitely not the best Ira player by any means at all. I don't even think I'm the best one in the UK. But I do play the deck a lot, and I have had success with it. So I thought it would be a useful resource for people to have this that they can look at and listen to. So the first deck that I want to go through is my aggro Ira build, and it is extremely aggressive. This was the first deck that I ran, and it was also the first deck that I won my first Flesh and Blood Armory event with, my first ever first place in a competitive Flesh and Blood tournament. In terms of the equipment, we're running Kodachis, we're running Snapdragon Scalers, we're running Vest of the First Fist. Now, I ran this originally because I didn't have a tunic. Although we were playing on TTS, I wanted to try and play with cards that I owned. I don't necessarily think that I think in this aggressive build, actually, Vest is a better pick than Tunic. You want those resources immediately, and having two resources is quite useful in this deck. As we'll see, it doesn't run many pitching cards. You can run Tunic, of course, but the idea with this deck is you really want to be winning, or be in a winning position within the first 3 turns. So Tunic can be a bit slow, and the blocking isn't super relevant because you're just not blocking with this deck. You're going full aggro and trying to win as soon as possible. We've got Breaking Scales. We don't run a huge number of combo cards, but you can throw it out there. It's important to note that you because you don't run that many combo cards, you might just want to get this used as on something just to push a damage in, rather than try and get an on-hit effect. And we're running Mask of Momentum, which is key. The mask is really, really impactful in this build because the more cards you draw, if you draw a card from Mask, you're probably going to win, because the cards are designed to just go off on these incredibly wide combat chains that you just keep hitting them multiple times over and over again. And your draws off the top in this deck are very, very strong. And we'll see that we actually play other card draw cards to try and get even more card draw in. So we'll look at the reds first. So we've got Torrent Tempo here, and Soulbead Strike, two very similar cards. They do very similar things in terms of on hit you get Go Again. Torrent Tempo costs 1 but hits for 5. Soulbead Strike costs 0 but only hits for 4. Now these actually aren't very strong in this build because the hit is conditional. Really, with this deck, you want to be going as wide as possible, and having conditional Go Again isn't that great. But Torrent Tempo is a great card to throw in, and it's a great card. Both of them are great cards to combo with Razor Reflex to guarantee the Go Again. I mean, it doubles up, but you don't get 2 action points. But you're normally going to go over, get the Go Again by both the effect of these 2 cards and the effect of Razor Reflex, which seems like it's wasteful, but because it doesn't have guaranteed Go Again, they're a good card to use Razor Reflex on. And then we have the Head Jab and the Leg Tap. So both of these cards only block for 2, which is an issue if you're blocking, but you shouldn't be blocking with this deck. You should be going as aggressive as possible. And these cards are great. Head Jab, try and remember to try and play this on your second attack to get the buff from Ira to take it up to 4, which is a lot better than 3, because then they have to block with a card and a equipment if they don't want to take any damage, or if they want to prevent a mask trigger. Leg Tap is another one actually you might want to consider playing on too. 5 5 is even better than 4, because then they can't use an equipment piece and a card to block it completely. Normally they have to use one of their better pieces of equipment. If you're up against Dorinthia, for example, they'd have to use their the Courage or their Braces. You don't really want to be going up against Dorinthia with this deck, which we'll talk about in a minute, but it's good. E-Strike, again, E-Strike is a great card. It's not as good in this deck as it is in others because you don't really want to get cards out of your hand. You want to have as many cards in your hand as possible. So actually the cost for E-Strike is sometimes a problem. It's definitely a deck where you can do E-Strike, draw a card into Razor Reflex, or E-Strike, draw a card into Snapdragon Scalers, to try and to basically turn E-Strike into a 0 cost hit for 5 with Go Again. Giving up a card in your hand is not always the thing you want to do. But if you are on the back foot, which is, you don't want to be on the back foot, E-Strike is a good card. If you can keep 2 cards in hand, go E-Strike for 7. That is good and can put the momentum back in your favour. Razor Reflex, we've already touched on it. Great card in this deck. The 1 cost is an issue. It's often a card that you'll try and get a hit and activate your vest earlier in your combat chain to try and pay for something like a Razor Reflex. That cost can be a problem, but it's great. Giving +3, it's great for closing out with Kodachis. It's great for giving cards Go Again that don't have Go Again. Examples of that are Snatch. So Snatch is a great way to end your combat chain. Get that card draw, put a card in arsenal is great, but it can also be a good one to combo with Razor Reflex to give Snatch Go Again and draw a card and then play that card with a Go Again, which, as you can see, most of these cards are playable off the top. They cost 0 or they cost very little resource. Snatch, yes, great card to play at the end. It's almost a must block, giving you more cards, allowing you to do a full combat chain of several hits. You're normally not going to have any cards left in hand to put in the arsenal, so having Snatch at the end is really good. And if they've got any cards left to block with it, they kind of have to stop you getting a card in arsenal and going even harder on the next turn. Ravenous Rabble, just a really good card in this deck. Lots of red costs, so that's normally always hitting for 4. It's also very nice to see the top card of your deck, so you all know what you'll be drawing with Mask, or know what you'll be drawing with Plunder Run, which is the next card. This is a really good card if you lose the dice roll and you have to go first. Getting this in Arsenal is fantastic. On other games, it's normally it's kind of a you're just playing it to cycle a card. You will normally hit with an attack action. So if you don't get the +3, it's not the end of the world. You probably will hit. Just remember to play it at the very start of your turn, because if you play it mid attacks, it will break your combo chain, it will break your mask chain, which is not good, because the attack action ends the cards hitting in a row. So say you go Kodachi, Kodachi, Plunder Run, Leg Tap. If Leg Tap hits, Mask of Momentum won't trigger because it's not the 3rd or higher chain link in a row anymore. It's a new chain. So just bear that in mind, that even if you need to play that at the very start. Scar for a Scar, very similar to Ravenous Rabble. You're probably going to be on low health because you need to tank hits in order to come back with full hands, so really good card to play. Rising Knee Thrust is a bit of a pitch card, but you do run the Leg Tap, you do run the Hurricane Technique. In a perfect world, you can get this to hit, but it's mainly just a pitch for 2. You don't need as many pitch blues in this deck because your cards cost 0, so you don't need as much pitch. But so I went for the yellow one. I do run the blue as well, but just having those 4 cards, and you can always go Rising Knee Thrust, Snapdragon into Hurricane Technique. Something you can do. Yep, Hurricane Technique, another good card to end on. Don't worry too much about the combo. It can just be a card to hit at the end for 4. If you do get it, it's a must block, which is great. Otherwise, it comes back into your hand. You might be able to hit again. You could do a perfect scenario. You go Leg Tap, Rising Knee Thrust, Hurricane Technique, pitching a blue. You've got 1 resource. You hit with a Hurricane Technique. It comes back with your hand, and maybe you activate the Vest of First Fist. You hit again, and if they can't do anything about it, you can just keep hitting them. But it won't happen. But if it does happen, it will be pretty impressive. Salt the Wound, really good card to draw off the top. If you've hit a bunch of times in turn, it can get quite big, but it's also a very good pitch card. It also blocks for 3, which is nice. Soulbeat Strike, it's another pitch card, but you can throw it in there. Just remember, if you need to go again, think about whether you want to play this or not. Whirling Mist Blossom, another must block. Really good with Razor Reflex. If you get this off with Razor Reflex and you get the draw, you're probably going to win. Leg tap again for the rising knee thrust, but just good damage with guaranteed go again. Head jab again, guaranteed go again. Great to extend your lines, but consider pitching this for your Kodachis sometimes. It can be better value to Kodachi rather than head jab once. Lunging press is another pitch card, but at the same time, this is relevant sometimes in getting wins, getting your soul beat strikes and torrent of tempos over the person's block to get damage in, so bear that in mind too. And then rising knee thrust and blue head jabs, they're basically pitch cards. Head jab for blue is nice. It's another card you can draw off the top and hit with for a little bit of extra damage if they've already used all their cards to block with. And that's the build. In terms of success, it did win a tournament. I think these days you're going to have trouble. Dorinthia with her big fridge, all the cards, all the equipment cards that block, can just shut down one of your turns, and you can end up taking too much damage. But you can get wins against other Iras that don't draw into their flick flacks, and even if they do draw into their flick flacks, they have to play it very well because you can throw in lower hitting attacks after the flick flack to kind of get damage in and make them, oh, I have to waste a card blocking for 5 on something that's only hitting for 2. But I think this is more of a historic deck that I just wanted to show you how the deck used to be, and to give you an idea of how much it's changed to the state that it is right now.